The Pope's dead. Yep, you heard that right. The Vatican is in mourning, and while the world pauses to reflect on the passing of a man who led millions with humility, faith, and compassion, it's impossible not to notice the complicated and often dramatic history that the papacy carries. Pope Francis, the current pope, was known for his simple lifestyle, his focus on social justice, and his push for reform within the Church. His passing marks the end of a significant era in the Catholic Church, and his legacy of humility and service will undoubtedly be remembered for generations to come. But as we honor Pope Francis, let's not forget that the papacy, throughout history, has been far from a peaceful affair. In fact, some of the wildest stories you've ever heard probably have their roots in the Vatican's past. We're talking about corruption, intrigue, and enough drama to make any reality TV show look tame. So, while we pause and reflect on his life and leadership, let's also take a moment to explore the chaos that some of his predecessors brought to the papacy. Grab your popcorn. This history lesson is about to get spicy, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button because you won't want to miss the rest of this roller coaster ride through papal history. Pope Alexander VI, Rodrigo Borgia, the most controversial pope. Okay, let's kick things off with a pope who might as well have been a character in a telenovela. Pope Alexander VI. Born Rodrigo Borgia, this guy was not here to play by the rules. He wasn't just the head of the Catholic Church, he was a political mastermind, a corrupt genius, and let's be real, the OG family man. Except his family were his kids from various mistresses. Yeah, we're diving into that level of chaos. Alexander VI's reign, 1492 to 1503, was basically a masterclass in nepotism. Forget about holy duties. Rodrigo's real priority was securing power for his own kids. His daughter, Lucrezia Borgia, was married off and then remarried for political advantage. His son, Cesare Borgia, was basically his enforcer. Think of him as the family fixer, handling things with shady methods that included murder, manipulation, and some straight-up mafia-level operations. Oh, and let's not forget that Cesare was rumored to have been involved in his sister's affairs, too. Yikes. Rodrigo wasn't just sitting back while his kids ran the show either. He was the kingpin of this twisted operation. He used bribes, shady alliances, and even poisoning to secure the best deals for the Borgia family. If there was a way to get more power, more land, or more money, you better believe Rodrigo was involved. And his legacy? Well, let's just say morally flexible would be putting it lightly. The Vatican might have been built on holiness, but under Alexander VI, it was more about who you knew and how much cash you could offer. So yeah, history didn't exactly look at him as a saint, but he sure knew how to keep people talking. If you're into drama, Rodrigo Borgia was your guy. Pope Leo X, the Vatican's Louis XIV. Enter Pope Leo X, who took the idea of living large and ran with it. And then some. If Pope Alexander VI was the king of scandal, Leo X was the king of excess. This guy wasn't about spreading the gospel. He was more into spreading luxury everywhere he could. Born Giovanni de' Medici, he didn't just get a title. He got a life of indulgence that would make Louis XIV blush. Pope Leo X took the papacy to a whole new level of living for the vibes. Forget about being frugal. This pope loved spending money like it was his personal stash. He dropped bank on art, lavish parties, and luxury goods like a true Renaissance man. We're talking about funding Michelangelo's Sistine Chapel ceiling and other massive art projects, commissioning Raphael to create some of the most famous frescoes, and living in a palace that looked like a Pinterest board for the wealthy. Leo's reign was basically a mix between a Renaissance party and a Vogue photo shoot. But it wasn't just about the art and style. Leo X was also a master of political maneuvering. With the Medici family in his corner, he pretty much had the Vatican in his back pocket, turning it into his personal playground. There were lavish dinners, endless feasts, and all kinds of events that screamed royalty, not holiness. He loved the finer things in life, and the church's coffers funded it all. It's like if a pope had a credit card with no limit and no shame. If Leo wanted something, he just took it. But here's the kicker. His extravagance eventually led to financial ruin for the church. He spent money so recklessly that it helped trigger one of the most significant scandals in church history, the sale of indulgences. Leo X needed cash, and he got it by selling forgiveness for sins. Yep, you could pay your way into heaven. Naturally, this little stunt didn't sit well with everyone, especially a certain monk named Martin Luther, who would later nail his 95 Theses to a church door and, well, change history forever. Oops. So, while Leo X loved luxury and lived like a Renaissance celebrity, his over-the-top lifestyle ended up causing some major problems. If the Vatican was supposed to be about spirituality, Leo X was out here living like a rock star. And, much like a rock star, he left a trail of chaos in his wake. Okay, hold on to your seats because we're about to dive into one of the weirdest stories in papal history, the Cadaver Synod. And yes, you read that right. This wasn't some over-the-top drama from an ancient Netflix show. This was a real thing that happened in 897 AD. And trust me, it's as wild as it sounds. Pope Formosus, a former pope who was dead, was exhumed and put on trial. Let that sink in for a second. Imagine the scene. Formosus had passed away years earlier, but his political enemies weren't done with him. Nope. They weren't about to let him rest in peace. So what did they do? They dug up his body, propped it up in front of a court, and put it on trial for various crimes. Talk about a case of ghosting someone, but in the most literal sense. The whole trial, known as the Cadaver Synod, was led by Pope Stephen VI, who was really not a fan of Formosus. The charges? Well, apparently Formosus was accused of perjury, violating church law, and even illegally becoming pope in the first place. And since, he was already dead, it wasn't like he could speak in his own defense. So they just went ahead and convicted him anyway. His corpse was found guilty, stripped of its papal vestments, and the body was condemned to eternal damnation. Yes, the body. They even cut off his fingers, the ones used for blessings. Creepy, right? As if that wasn't bizarre enough, the Cadaver Synod didn't exactly help Stephen VI's case. Instead of taking down his rival, it made the whole situation even messier. The public wasn't exactly thrilled with the idea of using a rotting corpse to settle political scores. Eventually, Pope Stephen VI was imprisoned and murdered, and his actions were deemed so absurd that the entire trial was declared invalid. But hey, at least it gave the Vatican something to talk about for the next 1,000 years. So, in case you needed any proof that papal history has some wild twists, look no further than the Cadaver Synod. A dead pope on trial? Talk about the ultimate plot twist. If they had Twitter back then, this would have been trending for weeks. And honestly, it kind of makes our modern reality shows seem pretty tame, doesn't it? So, yes, the current pope has passed away, and the Vatican is in mourning, as expected. It's a somber moment, and it's only fitting that we take a pause to honor the man who led millions in faith. But as we reflect on this modern loss, it's impossible not to think about the wild history of the papacy, a history that's been anything but serene. From Pope Alexander VI's corruption and family drama, to Pope Leo X's lavish lifestyle funded by the church's coffers, and even to the bizarre, creepy spectacle of the Cadaver Synod, the Vatican has had its fair share of chaos. And here's the kicker. This isn't even the whole story. We're talking about centuries of backstabbing, power plays, and more scandal than an entire season of Gossip Girl. The papacy, it seems, has never been short on drama. It's like every pope who stepped into the role had to leave their mark. And sometimes that mark was more chaotic than holy. As we bid farewell to the current pope, we can appreciate the gravity of his passing while also acknowledging the unforgettable, often absurd legacy of those who came before him. After all, every institution, no matter how holy, has its skeletons, sometimes literally in the closet. So, rest in peace, Pope. Your reign may have been calm, but the ones before you? Absolute chaos. And hey, maybe the next papal drama won't be quite as intense, but if history has taught us anything, it's that the Vatican story is far from over, and trust me, it's always more exciting than we think.